All right, hello everyone. Welcome back. It's that time of the week. It is time for some more CTC. Today we arrive at Mexico for round number 14 and the penultimate round of this season in CTC. I am your race commentator, More Games, and joined alongside me once again is Mateo. How are you doing today, Mateo?
Hello, Mo. I'm great, thanks, and I'm so excited to be back with CTC, of course. The second round of the last stage, and we already have our champions. Congratulations, of course, to Talent Factory, who they won after round 13 in Miami. So now the battle heats up. The focus is on NLR and OP to see who can grab the second place in Season 1. Only 2 races to go, so Mexico is going to play an important role in who's going to get that second sweet spot on the podium. And most important things first, More. Who do you think it's going to be before qualifying starts?
Obviously, NLR and OP putting their front foot forward. They want to get the best result possible in these final 2 rounds. And OP have Tim and Kian. NLR with Justin Ruffy and Talent Factory Rudy is making a return. So if I had to pick one driver for pole position at this circuit, I think I'm going to have to give it to NLR Justin. I'm going to go a little bit spicy with this one and see how fast can the NLR driver go. Obviously, he was battling for pole position back in Australia in his very first race in CTC. And I have the confidence in Justin. I think he can definitely battle for pole position. He's going to need to. 9 points is the difference between OP and NLR. Obviously, OP leading after their 1-2 last time out. And yeah, like you mentioned, Talent Factory are the champions. Obviously, we didn't mention it at the time because I don't think they scored enough points. But after some penalties were applied by the stewards, Talent Factory are your CTC champions, and by quite some margin, winning it on the third last round of the season. Just goes to show how well they've been doing in this competition. But we are now getting ready for the Mexican qualifying session. And it's all to play for with just 2 more rounds to go. Obviously, I've given my prediction for pole position. I think it's going to be Justin, and I think NLR have been practicing very, very hard for this round. But if you had to pick one man for the pole position, who would you pick?
I think, well, NLR, of course, using their 1-2 lineup, they're using Justin and Ruffy. So I have no doubt that in the race they'll do very well. But in qualifying, I think that TF still have it, but between OP and NLR, I think OP are going to come out in front, and I think they're going to have both cars just in front of NLR. But regarding TF, they have been in front the entire season, but now, of course, they've already won it. So it's a question of on is there enough stake right now for them to be practicing for this competition, or are they just here driving for fun? Well, we're going to have to wait and see because that will have an impact on the amount of points scored for both teams, and it's currently NLR which are going to have to score 11 points now to equal with OP. Of course, they're 11 points behind, 194 for Outplayed Racing and 185 for NLR. So they are on the back foot here, and they're going to need to score maximal points, which means they'll want TF and OP, of course, out of their way. But yeah, I think I'm going to give it to OP, and for pole, I'm going to give it to Kian just because of his results previously in other competitions, especially PSGL. I think he's doing a really solid job. So yeah, I think it's going to be certainly interesting though, because a lot of talented drivers on the grid.
There definitely is, and there always has been in CTC. And I think this is going to be the last time we mention the post-race penalties from last round. But the man, one Namsco, who scored his debut podium and won esports first podium in CTC, sadly got it taken away because of that incident between himself and Talent Factory Rudy, where he just carried a little bit too much speed into the turn 13 and 14 chicane and spun Talent Factory Legend round. So he lost his podium, sadly. So one still don't have a podium to their name, but there's every chance they could score today. One Namsco showed us last time out truly how competitive he is prepared to be in this competition, and I'm sure he's going to be pulling out all the stops for these final 2 rounds. Obviously, no big championship implications for one, They want to get out and get the best result possible, no matter what, just as all the teams do. You can see a couple of drivers now coming out onto the track. Both OP drivers getting an early start to the session. Two of the first drivers to get out, but the first man actually out on track is the VIR driver of Marlin. Obviously, his first race in CTC. VIR, obviously, they're going to have a lot of debut drivers being quite new to the competition. So let's see what the Virtual Insanity Racing driver can do on his very first lap time of the session, coming through the stadium section now and getting prepared to start his lap time. And as we come out of the final turn, we're going to be starting a lap at this Mexican circuit. Starting it off with a very, very long pit straight, probably one of the longest on the calendar. And when you get the dose of DRS for pretty much the entire straight, you can expect we're going to see a lot of overtakes into this turn 1 now. You can see late braking and hitting that apex quite nicely and set you into the chicane of turn 2 and 3, which Martin has taken quite nicely. They're riding the curb on the outside and getting on the throttle as quickly as possible. Now another DRS straight as we go into turn 4, a lot more of a technical part of this circuit. A little bit wide into turn number 4, but as we head into the double right-hander of turn, or just a single right-hander with 2 apexes of turn 6, it brings us to the high-speed middle sector. You can see you have to change the direction of the car so quickly, especially into here. Snap the steering as we head into that double right and left, and then to another DRS straight in the final of the lap time. This brings us to the third sector in the stadium section of the lap time. All the fans getting to watch the cars as they zoom through these slow speed turns, even if they are slow speed, still going around 100 kilometers an hour through them. This brings us to the final turn. Very hard to get onto the power, but across the line, he is going to set a 1 minute 15.1, a good lap time there, and definitely a solid one from the VIR driver. But OP Gian topping it straight away with a 1 minute 14.9. He goes to provisional pole position. Meanwhile, his teammate actually invalidates his lap time and heads back to the pit lane. You can see one of the NLR drivers, both NLR drivers are actually currently on outlap, so they've gone a little bit later than everyone else, going to get that slightly better track evolution. VIR Oli Olaf sets a lap time, so does Talent Factory Rudy, a 15.5 for the Talent Factory driver. So already on his banker lap, showing that he's a little more relaxed coming into this round. He just needs to show up, maybe get a decent result or two, but at the end of the day, Talent Factory are the champions. They have no more stress on them anymore. Il Janu goes into a top 3 position with a 15.5, just ahead of Talent Factory Rudy. So far, OP Kian, the only man into the 1 minute 14s, but if he is the only man in the 1 minute 14s, I'm sure we're going to see a lot more drivers get into those crucial 1 minute 14s. And it looks like both the NLR drivers have now begun their first lap times of the session.
Yup, indeed. And OP starting off, of course, on the front foot, but NLR yet to complete their lap times. And I think it is crucial to go on board with the 2 drivers. As we see NLR Justin, he's heading through the S section now. Extremely quick corners, as you said before, but now into the slow speed corners. And this is a completely different section of the track and completely different and very hard to master. And NLR Justin now following behind the Ferrari, which I believe to be TF Ruddy, as he backs out and lets Justin through. Let's see if OP can equalize on OP, if NLR can equalize on OP on this lap, and it's going to be 1:15.273, so not too bad for NLR. Their sweet spot hasn't been qualifying in the tournament at any point, so it is not a bad lap whatsoever. Ruffy, on the other hand, he has invalidated his banker lap. It was going to be 15.673, which would have put him in P8, so not a great lap there for Ruffy, as well as invalidating. But now let's go on board with the McLaren of Nojek, who I believe is actually invalidated as well. So a lot of drivers struggling, it seems, and Mexico has always been tricky for that. Of course, so many different sections, so many different speeds through the corners. It really varies, so you really need to be careful. But Dennis is starting his lap time, so let's go on board with the Binary driver. They've been in the shadows for the last part of CTC, but at the start they really were showing who they were, and hopefully they can get that form back, finishing off season 1 and starting season 2, as the majority of the teams there have signed up for the second season, which will be bigger, better and stronger. But now let's see if we can finish season 1 off with a bang, and Binanuri are going to be trying just that, as we can see Dennis now finishing off sector 1 with a 28.548. and it is not invalid so far. It's looking pretty clean, although he's struggling there with second gear, full throttle. Not too great as he heads into the S section. The binary driver looking to keep improving on this fast section of the track. And he spins with the setup, not exactly allowing him to do what he wanted. It seems very unstable and not very confident on the throttle. His teammate just exiting the boxes, but now let's go on board with OP as the focus pans back to Tim. His teammate in pole, let's see if he can do the same. A 56.075 in Sector 2, now heading into Sector 3. Extremely slow through there, and he does get a snap of oversteer and looking extremely unstable in this final sector. Not great for Tim, but he's going to finish his lap without any invalidations. Once again, another snap out of the final corner. It's going to be 1:15.303 though. Certainly a lot of time in the lap for Tim, so it's looking promising, as well as a bit infuriating, losing a lot of time on his banker lap. But he has 10 minutes to keep going. Via Marlon, of course, in second place. He's starting a lap right now. And NLR Justin slots in right behind. So currently it is OP taking the lead of qualifying, as we can see. One also high up in the midfield. One is an interesting topic here. Do you think that they could compete if they started from the beginning of the season with the bigger teams? Do you think that they could keep up on points with NLR, OP, Talent Factory, with the likes of those big teams?
I think they could definitely compete from time to time with those teams. They've obviously had drivers in this competition who have competed, and they've gotten close to those top positions. And in the last few rounds, especially back in Miami, they were quite close in qualifying, as you can see riding on board with OP Kean. Big snap into the middle sector, just riding that curb a little bit too aggressively. But yeah, one Namsco and one Elliott, they were quite high in the midfield, at least in qualifying last time out, and then one Namsco was able to hold that position for pretty much the entire race. And obviously that post-race penalty is what lost him his podium position. But I think one are definitely a competitive team, and definitely in the upper midfield. Whether they compete with the likes of Talent Factory, OP, NLR, I think those three teams are extremely competitive and have just been on another level in this competition. They've absolutely dominated the scene, and Talent Factory obviously winning it 3 rounds earlier, and OP and NLR pretty much picking up all of the scraps. So I think it's definitely very hard to compete with those top 3 teams, but I think one is quite close to breaking into those top 6 positions. And VIR too, I think as well. They've been quite strong in the recent qualifying sessions. Obviously VIR Daniel last time out was doing very nicely for himself in the Alfa Romeo. Almost scored some big points, but got a little bit unlucky with the incidents he was involved with. And now currently the VIR driver Marlon is in P2, and he's improved his lap time to a 1:15.0, so he's doing quite nicely for himself so far in this session. Just about a tenth off of OP Kean's provisional pole time of a 14.9. Jerry for Talent Factory has now moved himself into P3 with a 15.1. And you can see DG Ruffy currently down in P16. That is because he has not set a lap time yet in this session. Currently on his out lap and coming through the stadium section, getting his tyres prepared for what will be, hopefully, his first valid lap time of the session. But he really needs to get a time on the board now. He hasn't gotten that initial banker on the board, obviously because of his invalidation for his first lap. So he wants to get this time now so he can have a delta to compare himself with for the end of this session. So let's ride on board with the NLR driver and see what he can do. Obviously so far hasn't looked super confident at this circuit, but hopefully he can put a good lap together and get himself into a decent position for today's Grand Prix. We head into turn 2 and 3 now. You can see riding that turn 2 sausage curb, and then a bit too sharp there on the third corner, and that will definitely hurt his exit just a little bit. We now come into turn 4, and you can see it's quite wide going into there. Quite a big lockup, and then an early apex for turn 5 means he's not going to get the best exit as we head into turn 6. So far, it's been a scruffy first sector and a half. So, really needs to find something special now in this middle sector, riding that curb super aggressively, trying to gain as much time as possible, using the track limits to his advantage as he gets so close to the white lines. Now into this final sector, you need to be so precise with the steering, with the throttle inputs and the brake. Into the hairpin we go, slightly missing that apex, and then really trying to cut that corner as much as possible. out of the final turn now. Any squirrely moments on the back? There is just one as he comes across the line of 15.4. He goes to P9, and yeah, that definitely wasn't the best lap time from Ruffy, who seems to be struggling a little bit more at this Mexican circuit. Meanwhile, his teammate, on the other hand, currently P4, and as he heads out of the first sector of the lap, he's currently 5/100ths down on his time, so he is also not improving, and needs to find something in these last two sectors. Let's ride on board with the other NLR driver to see if he can improve his position. Currently in P4 with a 15.2 and 3/10 off of the provisional pole time. I'm sure he can definitely find some more lap time on his previous lap. So as we head through the middle sector, you can see snap of oversteer causes him to cut that last left-hander, and he now has to abandon this lap time. So NLR seem to be struggling quite a bit now in this qualifying session, and that could heavily affect them for today's Grand Prix.
Indeed, it could, but it doesn't seem like it's only NLR. Whilst you've been going on board with their drivers, I've been spectating another few, and everyone I've gone on board with struggling. They've been spinning at the fast S section, and overall just invalidating their lap time. So I think currently everyone not quite happy. Of course, Mexico is a very challenging track, so NLR certainly not alone, but OP Kian, he's not seeming to be struggling as much as the others, which is going to give him a great boost of confidence into his final hot lap of the session. Of course, you really need that banker time, and that's something that DG Ruffy does not have. NLR Justin will have a bit more confidence, but NLR as a whole, they need two drivers, and certainly it seems only one is doing them the part. And OP Tim, as we see, he's invalidated his lap time. OP Kian, he's been quiet since his banker lap time, not setting a faster lap, but he's now seeming to be on a hot lap, as via Marlon also starting a lap now, and Kian indeed 300s up on his lap after Sector 1, but of course Sector 1 is certainly not the most important sector. Sector 2 and Sector 3 mattering much more around Mexico, so now we're going to go on board with Kian into the S section, see if he can keep that setup stable, if he can keep this car stable, and we can see the grass on the inside of that corner completely overrun by all the cars, getting the best line with all the practice they've had, and we can see the Red Bull, his teammate, off the track there. So certainly no improvement from his teammate OP Tim, as Kian is going to still keep going into the slower section of the track, into the stadium. The fans here, they a lot of time to watch the car, of course, through the slow corners, although the F1 cars are so much faster than it looks like. As we can see, Kian heads off into the boxes, not happy with what he did there, perhaps not improving, as he's going to go back in the boxes and set a final lap time later on. Via Marlon behind, he's invalidated, and the two TF drivers not as loud as they normally would be, and still P3 and P4, but I think their effort may have gone down a bit with their confirmed championship lead. And now let's find someone who's not improving, who is improving. Sorry, it's one Namsco, but he's now down on his lap time as well, and the majority of drivers in the pit lane, so more. What do you think the fastest lap time is going to be in this session? So many drivers struggling. Do you think they can put it together? And if so, what is the final magic lap going to be for the driver who ends up in pole position?
I think OP Kian there on his last lap time was a 10th up on his middle sector split. So he has a 14.8 in him, but he decided to abandon his lap time, maybe thinking that he couldn't get back to the pit lane in time to actually go and set a final lap at the end of the session, which is probably the best time, set a lap time when the track evolution is at its best. But I think we've seen it many times before where drivers just set those fantastic lap times in the very death of the session. So I think we could possibly see a driver or two dipping into the 14.7s. VIR Marlon has been slowly improving upon that lap time. He's found his way into the 14.9s, and if he can just get that final little bit of improvement, he could be challenging for pole position in his debut Grand Prix in CTC. He's got quite the competitor to go up against OPK, and obviously Talent Factory Rudy are the other two who are going to be gunning for pole position. Rudy so far on a 15.1 and 2/10 off of that pole position time, but he's an extremely competitive driver and a very talented one too. I'm sure he is going to find something in this final lap time to hopefully boost him up a position or two. but his teammate Jerry is now coming out of the final turn to begin his final lap time of this session. So let's ride on board with the Town Factory driver and see what he can do. His teammate coming out of the pit lane, but does not look like he's going to be getting much of a slipstream. So obviously they attempted something there, just did not work out for them the way they expected to. Into turn 1 now, hitting his apex is quite nicely, cutting this turn 2 and the turn 3 as much as possible to get the good exit out of this turn 3 on your way into turn 4. DRS wide open, getting up to 8th gear as we head all the way back down to 3rd. And you have to be the lines to here are actually amazing. You have to be so precise. You have to decide when are you going to hit that apex, how are you going to take your exit, how much curb do you want to take, especially through this middle sector, as it's bottoming out on these curves is what can send you spinning. But as we head into here, he has absolutely no regards, throwing the car, and the car just agreeing with it, allowing him to. But he's only 2/100ths up on his time, and as he heads into the final sector, you can see taking that sausage curb on the inside. That's given a little bit of oversteer as he tries to get on the power out of the hairpin. He's also gotten another snap, and he now has one final turn to go. But is it going to be an improvement? No is the answer. So he slows down because he wants to give his teammate Talent Factory Rudy a little bit of a slipstream. VIR Marlin currently starting his lap time, once again just finding those little improvements. 27/1000ths up on his time of a 14.9, and he needs to improve by a little bit more if he wants to match OP Keane's time, who's also trying his very best to improve. He needs his pole position. He knows this is going to be a crucial round in deciding the championship, in the P2 position in the championship. VIR Marlin now coming through the middle sector. You can see getting so close. I almost thought he invalidated his lap time there, but just about keeping it within the limits. Now into the final sector. He needs to carry as much speed as possible. Make sure he's getting these exits just right. You can see the Rebel of OP Keane has crashed out of the session. So if VIR Marlin can improve by 7/100ths, he will be getting this pole position. So across the line now, can he possibly get it across the line? It is going to be a 15 flat. He does not improve on his time, and he won't be getting pole position for today's Grand Prix. Can Town Factory Rudy do anything about this and take advantage of OP Keane making a mistake at the very end of the session? Out of the final turn now, what can Town Factory Rudy produce? It's going to be a 15 flat, not close enough. Is anyone else on a lap? It looks like one Namskull has invalidated his lap time, and his teammate comes across the line now to set a 15.2 and boosts himself up into P8. But OP Keane, with his banker lap time of a 1:14.9, is going to be on pole position for today's Grand Prix, with VIR Marlin just 6/100ths of a second behind, and NLR Justin getting himself up into the top 3. Meanwhile, OP Tim and DG Ruffy not having the best of qualifying sessions, but it's very close there, and very surprising to see that OP Keane, with his initial banker time, has secured pole position.
Yeah, you don't see that much, but the drivers were struggling, and it seems they couldn't find the improvements or the confidence. And Kian, a great banker, of course, we can't keep that out of the question, but yeah, it's a bit strange. Onto the race, it seems, since the drivers are struggling a tad bit more than you would expect, it could be very interesting and spicy for all the teams, and especially NLR and OP in that fight. They've got 2 drivers up front and 2 in the midfield, so it certainly will be a very intriguing race, as we can see Kian on pole. 69/100ths off is Via Marlin, then it's NLR Justin, TF Ruddy, TF Jerry Van Bussel. So TF, although they're not may not be putting in their 100%, still up there showing their raw pace as a team. Then it's 1 Namsco, Ilgenu, 1 Elliot, OP Tim, then the 2 GL drivers, and then we finally see DG Ruffy, who is 2 positions behind Tim. So if he can make those up at the start, which is very much possible, he can get a chance at beating an OP driver. ET8 Nosek follows in P13, then it's Oliolaf, Dennis, Nafj, and Ace Grosjean, who did not set a qualifying time due to his ban, but now heading into the race in Mexico, it's going to be an immediate start, as the formation app has not been included due to the game glitches.
Yeah, so the drivers are gonna have to get their strategies ready, fine tune their setups, and then they'll be jumping straight into today's Grand Prix. And it's gonna be quite an interesting one. A lot of drivers towards the top. Obviously, Talent Factory securing two of the top four positions, as they usually tend to do. OP Kean on pole position with a VIR Marlin possibly trying to get himself into the mix. NLR Justin, I'm sorry, no, NLR Justin in the top three. Tam Factory getting two of the top five positions. So still good performance from them. But it looks like the main battle today is going to be between OP Kean, Marlin, and NLR Justin. With OP Kean and Justin having big stress and a lot of weight on their shoulders, because how many points they score today could decide P2 in the championship. And obviously OP Tim and DG Ruffy will just be trying their very best to recover and get themselves into a somewhat decent points paying position so they can support their teammate in the championship. The drivers are now ready, cars are on the grid, and we have 3, 4, 5 red lights. They're gone. We're away. What kind of start is it for our poleman of OP Kean as he gets off the line alongside VIR Martin? It looks like a decent one up against the Alfa Romeo, who's attempting to pull alongside. Meanwhile, NLR Justin getting a massive slipstream off of the Red Bull. He's looking to the outside lines. We head into turn one. Does he have the straight line speed to hold this line around the outside now as we head into turn two? It turns to the inside. OP Kean is not going to give up this position very easily, but it looks like NLR Justin from P3 on the grid has gotten himself up into the lead of the Grand Prix. Tam Factory really looking to the inside line, and as we head into turn 4, it is 3 wide between the Red Bull, the Ferrari, and the Alfa Romeo, and it's still 3 wide into turn number 5. You can see 2 drivers going off of the track because of that, and there's still 3 wide coming through turn number 6, and if they try this through a high-speed turn, I'm sure it won't work out, so OP Kean forced to back out of that move. Meanwhile, VIR Martin has to go off of the track to overtake Talent Factory Rudy and maintain his starting position of P2, but a lot of battling there has allowed Justin to pull away that little bit. Meanwhile, Rudy is making up the position back on VIR Marlin, and he's got himself back up into that P2 position. OP Kean, on the other hand, has had a terrible start. He falls down to P4, is behind Marlin, Rudy, and his championship rival, NLR Justin, who finds himself outside of the DRS of the Town Factory driver of Rudy. Meanwhile, OP Tim, currently P7, and trying to make up more positions as he looks to the inside line of one Namsco, and then he really needs to make up the positions as quickly as possible because DG Ruffy only 2 positions behind. He's trying to make it 3s. He looks to that inside line and he gets the move done before turn number 2. OP Tim up into a top 6 position now. Meanwhile, DG Ruffy in P9. You see that is the AlphaTauri of one Elliott who has had a spin, and Bean Larsenarf is also down there. Nojek is going side by side with Dennis, who's made contact there, and he's had a spin and got into the wall and falls behind both his teammate and one Elliott. So a lot of chaos in these opening few laps.
Yup, it's certainly been an interesting few laps. The respect is there, though, as the competitiveness has certainly not faded away any sort. We can see TF Ruddy and NLR Justin making up 2 positions each, and that, of course, means NLR in front with Justin. As you said, you had the confidence in him, and he is showing you and doing you proud now. As you can see, TF, Jerry Van Bussel, and OP Kean, former rivals, as TF went out on top, though, and now Tim going for the overtake on TF, Jerry Van Bussel. Bussel is right behind on the straight, the very long straight. He has the ERS open, and he's certainly looking to make the move, the dive bomb, and he's going to get it done before the corner itself, as just before braking. We can see Jerry Van Bussel on the outside and Tim on the inside, still going side by side as they make a bit of contact there. Nearly into the wall goes OP Tim, but he keeps it alive, and that gives an opportunity to OP to one Namsco, who makes the move on both of them at once, heading into the next braking zone. And we can see now it's Tim who's got the outside, and now once again on the inside, and he's looking to make a move on the AlphaTauri. Once again, it's chaos there as Jerry Van Bussel looking for opportunities, as Tim still going side by side with him. Further back, DG Ruffy and Il Genu having an accident. That leaves NLR with very little points because they've only got one driver left in the competitive midfield, and certainly the points paying positions, but now full focus on OP, and they're seeming as a team, as two drives, to have a better showing so far. 3 laps in though, so DG Ruffy can certainly make up for it, but it's nothing but hard racing as the drivers go through the slow stadium section. You can see OP Tim getting the most of Jerry Van Bussel, but once again another moment of oversteer, meaning Jerry Van Bussel has a chance on the long Mexican straight. Not his best lap time, but of course he's been stuck behind OP Tim, and he's looking to end that right here, right now, opening the ERS to go down the inside, once again replicating his old move, but now looking to get even more in front as they touch on the straight. OP Tim not giving him anything. He breaks later around the outside, but the Ferrari, he's not letting in, and he's braking even later on the inside and keeping his position there. It's P6 now for Jerry Van Bussel after the great overtake on the straight and nice hard racing to keep his 6th paying position. And now GL Ethan and G Thibault are right behind and looking to get past OP Tim, who seems to be struggling a bit further in front. We can see OP Kian, he's not struggling as much, and now entering the train of the top 3 via Marlon, TF Ruddy and NLR Justin. We saw them battling extremely hard at the start. Now it's all calmed down a bit, and it seems at lap 4 the drivers have separated a tiny bit, all in the DRS train though, as OP Kian is trailing Marlon very closely into the next couple of corners, and he'll be wanting maximal points for OP in this very intense championship, and it's a huge opportunity with his opponent being in P13 and the other driver of NLR is P1, so he really has to make the move, because although he has an opportunity, they're still going to get great points in P1, and now he's going to look to make the move on the Mexican straight, just like Jerry Van Bussel, who has now got the fastest lap of the race, but it seems his straight line speed is not equal to that of Marlon, who's now 2 tenths behind TF Ruddy, who's 5 tenths behind the leader NLR Justin, and the train seeming to push away a bit from one Namsco, who is now 3 seconds away from the leading pack. So the top 4 pulling away, and the battle is about to start once again, it seems, as Jerry Van Bussel is on the hunt for yet another position.
Yeah, he's getting very, very close to one Namsco, and as he heads into turn number 4, he brakes super late, and one Namsco has no choice but to concede the position. Can't fight too hard coming into turn number 5 and 6. So Jerry Van Bussel, even though his championship worries are over, he's not going to let down these positions and these easy points in this race. He wants to get as many as possible and still get good results for himself and his team. So, OP Tim, he started on the medium compound tyres, whereas everyone else has pretty much started on the hards, trying to make the advantage last, but Jerry and one Namsco causing him difficulties on this lap 5 of 36, and he really needs to get a move on now. Although if you think about it, DG Ruffy in P13, so the driver that he is meant to be competing with, is not really an issue anymore in this Grand Prix. Obviously DG Ruffy only about 2 seconds off of the points paying positions, but he's quite a while off of this battle that OP Tim finds himself involved with. But yeah, I think NLR, they have that P1 position. They really need to hold this now. Justin has to do everything in his power to win this race, because OP Kian and OP Tim are in P4 and P7, and that's pretty similar points. I'm not too sure what the exact points are, but I think that's quite close to the 20 that you get for a race win. So Justin needs to do everything in his power to hold this position, to make sure the OP aren't gaining any more points in the championship. And right now he has got Talent Factory Rudy on the back of him, the man who's won so many races in this CTC competition, and he's looking to do it again in the penultimate round of the season. Meanwhile, OP Kian, he's going quite quickly now, and he's getting super close to the back of VIR Marlin, constantly having little looks into each and every turn, waiting for that perfect opportunity where he can actually overtake and get himself onto the podium and into a better position to contend for this race victory. And we head on to this DRS straight now, but you can see I think he might be running higher wings, or maybe Marlon is doing a little bit of an aggressive move here, because he's looking to make it 3 wide into turn 1. He has the outside, Rudy on the inside, and they both overtake Justin. Marlon now to the outside of Talent Factory Rudy, and he's made the move not just once but twice, but Rudy isn't going to go down without a fight, and a little bit of a snap on the back end for Marlon means he could lose lose both of these positions. Rudy is now on the outside of Marlon, with Kian on the outside of Justin, and it's so many drivers, so much chaos. You can see making contact with each other. Marlon and Justin going off of the track, Kian being super aggressive, trying to find any avenue into a P3 position, and he now finds himself in P2, but Marlon looks to the inside line, coming into the middle sector. This is going to lose him quite a bit of time, and they're still side by side. OP Kian finally makes the move, but can Marlon get a better exit coming into this final sector? It does not look like he can, but you can see Talent Factory Rudy, it almost feels inevitable that a Talent Factory driver takes the race lead, and he's now 9/10 in front. He's going to be pushing to break the DRS to the drivers behind, and with the pace that he has got, I'm sure he definitely is going to try it. You can see now Talent Factory Jerry and also OP Tim have now caught up to this DRS train. So with all this battling going on between the top four, it's left them vulnerable to the Talent Factory and OP driver of Jerry and Tim. And it now looks like it is going to be a 6-way battle for the victory. And that is not what NLR or Justin needed. DG Ruffy outside the points. Justin in P4 with Kian and Tim in P2 and 6. It looks like OP could wrap up this P2 in the championship quite nicely if they get a good result here. Tim just needs to make up those few more positions, but obviously he's on the mediums. He's still got the hards to go, so he is going to be quite weak towards the end of this Grand Prix.
Yup, indeed he will, and OP looking very, very positive so far, but a lot of drivers racking up penalties. So far, OP and NLR keeping clear of that, so they're equal on that sense. But in the positions, we see OP Kian and OP Tim, P2 and P6, whilst NLR are now P4 and P13, so a lot less points for them. And with only one round left after this, if NLR don't do something, and they don't do something quick, it seems like it could just escape from their grasp, the P2 position. But now NLR Justin is doing Marlon, of course, on track, so he can catch up with OP Kian, who is his rival, because Via Marlon has 3 seconds, as well as Jerry Van Bassel has just picked it up on this lap. But TF Ruddy, as always, we see Talent Factory leading, and it's inevitable, as you said. OP Kian, though, is right behind, and he's looking to rack up even more points for the team to make sure that they secure that P2, and at least they get away with a nice second place. But Via Marlon is very close behind, of course, all maintaining DRS distance with each other. It's just about getting close before that long straight, and when you are, then you can go for the move and pounce. But so far, no drivers really looking to go for moves, all maintaining their distance, as OP Tim gets a huge moment in the S section with a bit of a snap of O's there. Of course, as you talked about, he's on those medium compounded tyres. He's one of the only 3 who are on the mediums, and the other 2 are further down the grid, so not a great vibe from the medium compound, the yellow tyres, as he's gone 8 laps with them and already starting to feel a bit uncomfortable is OP Tim, although they are very far away from NLR and possibly securing the P2. If OP Tim does anything to compromise that, then NLR could very quickly make up points and possibly take it away at the last moment when it matters most, as now the drivers relax themselves a little bit and just waiting for the pit stop phase. That will come soon, of course, for the medium runners, as the hard tyres won't be boxing just yet. We'll be waiting another 10 laps or so. Of course, the undercut could be used. We see yellow flags in sector 1 for an ET8 driver. Il Genu has crashed out on the 3rd corner. I believe that is going a bit too wide, I assume, as OP Kian still following along from TF Ruddy, and he's certainly getting a bit too close for comfort for the Ferrari driver, and I'm sure they'll be battling each other extremely hard, as Via Marlon is still there, but losing a bit of time. Further back, though, GL Tebow making a move on one Namsco. It seems that he had a spin in the S section, as many have had before him, and that means GL are now promoted to P7 and P8. Very decent points paying positions for them in the midfield, of course, as OP Tim still looking strong on the mediums. Perhaps his confidence has come back, as he's 4/10s behind Jerry Van Bossel onto the straight, but the straight line speed does matter a lot, and as His teammate spins. ET8 Noziek has gotten past one Namsko, who I think may have disconnected from the session because VAR Ollie Olaf is going to follow in his footsteps as one Namsko is permanently ghosted, which is not great for VAR at all. Binary Dennis not having the greatest of races today, both a lot of penalties racking up and in the bottom few positions as OP Kian is now ever so close. Sector 1, when it ends, it seems, is his strongest, the first sector compared to TF Rada, usually around 2/10 away into that heavy braking zone, but he needs to gain back that time where he can make the move in Sector 2 and Sector 3 as he follows on for the Ferrari. And drivers maintaining solid pace, but as soon as one makes a mistake, which we've seen so much in the S section and in many other places, of course, in the first few corners, very easy to miss the curb, to miss the apex, and the one drivers are swapping because, of course, one Lamsco having issues there, but the drivers very equal. As we said, it's extremely competitive here in the competitive team championship, and this is how because it's been going on for so long and it's been so great. But now OP Kian activating the DRS, and he is gaining, but it's not enough as TF Ruddy having that straight line speed. OP Kian could go for the move though. It's a very long straight and he's gone extremely close. He's gone within a tenth and a half of TF Ruddy, so certainly if he keeps gaining and he just closes that gap just a tiny bit at the end of that first straight, then he could possibly go for the move and take P1 for OP, but currently that does not look like it is achievable as the driver is still going at the front and very closely packed.
Indeed, and this DRS train seems to be causing difficulties for the drivers. Obviously, OP Kian in the prime position to make some moves in this race. He has the advantage that Rudy does not, and that is the advantage of DRS, giving him big amounts of straight line speed on the DRS relative to the Ferrari, and that is showing itself because OP Kian is getting so close on the pit straights, and as you can see, coming through the stadium section, if he's able to stay nice and tight to the back of Talent Factory Rudy, he could definitely be looking for a move into turn 1. But let's see, OP Kian, he's been struggling in a straight line for the last couple of laps, and he could possibly be running higher wings in this session, and if he is, that might be why he's not able to overtake on these straights. You can see he's not using any of his ERS. He does not want to overtake Rudy. Riding on board, you can see there was a little bit of a lift, but OP Tim, his teammate, is trying to make the move on Jerry, but a big snap of oversteer, getting on the power too early, clips the back wheel of Jerry, and he is so lucky that did not end in a big crash between the Ferrari and the Rebel. That is the last thing that they needed, so very lucky to get away with that, but he needs to make sure now that he's not being as aggressive as he once was on his mediums, which are definitely past their prime, and I think he needs to play it a little bit more conservative now, and he could even think about boxing soon.
Indeed he could, and well, the bottom part of the pack is looking extremely more aggressive than the front, as they're all being extremely conservative and maintaining their levels of ERS, probably trying to gain them back after all that usage at the first few chaotic laps, to say the least. The drivers really giving it their all when it matters, and I'm sure we're going to see a lot more of that. Only 13 laps in and more than half the race to go, and it could certainly get extremely interesting. But now we see OP Kian once again on the back of Ruddy. His straight line speed is not letting him down whatsoever. As you can see, he's going to go for the move perhaps. He's very close, once again getting within a tenth and a half on the end part, but can't find the pace in the other parts of the track in the lead up to the final main straight to get closer on the exit. We can see further back VAR Ollie Olaf and Ace Grosjean going at it with each other. Ace Grosjean now on the outside, forced on the outside, or certainly prefers it as he regains his position from the outside. Could be looked at. VAR Ollie Olaf now not going to give up. He's going to look for a move on the inside, but he thinks better of it. Atishi Ruffy though is certainly close behind. He's not giving up. He had a little bit of a spin at the start, but he's still there and ready to pounce on the other drivers in front of him, looking to make up position so he can fight for solid ground. as this seems to be the best battle going on right now. OP Kian still maintaining that 4/10 distance as One Namsco has reconnected to the lobby, so it's great for him now. Also looking to make up positions. We see VIR Ollie Olaf maybe not judging his speed correctly into the S section as he's forced to cut the inside a bit, and there's certainly going to be a lot to report, and our new steward Tom is going to make sure that everything is looked at and stewarded correctly. As we can see, OP Tim is the first into the boxes with 14 lap old mediums, and he is going to be the first to box, but it is to the hards, and the hard runners will not be following him anytime soon, as OP Kian, has gone for the move on TF Ruddy. I completely missed that, and he's finally made it work, and I'm going to hand it off to you more to keep going, because OP Kian has now secured the lead for OP, and I've completely missed it.
And I have too, focusing on that the pit stop from Tim, and obviously the battle between Ruffy and Olaf, with Ruffy trying to gain his positions back. But yeah, OP Kian, you saw on a straight line, we saw him a little bit into turn 1, just having those little lifts. He definitely had the potential to overtake, and he has finally made the move now, and he's up into P1. And let's see, is this his strategy? Is he going to try and pull out of DRS of Talent Factory Rudy? I'm not sure if that's going to be the best option, because Rudy, for this entire time, has been pretty much saving up his ERS now, making sure that he has the ability to stay within the DRS of Kian when the move inevitably happened. And as you can see, keeping me up a decent pace relative to the Red Bull. But yeah, right now he's still doing a decent job to stick with the OP driver, who does set the fastest lap of the Grand Prix, so he's really pushing now at this stage. But he has not gotten out before the pit straight. That now means Rudy gets 2 doses of DRS in a row, and one of which is on this massive pit straight. So it does not look like Rudy will be trying to fight back, but he is going to stay in that DRS now. He has the ability to keep up with OP Kian ahead of him. Meanwhile, if you look at the penalty situation, VIR Marlon, NLR Justin, and Talent Factory Jerry all have 3-second time penalties. But I think the likes of Marlon's penalty might actually get removed, because obviously I'm sure you all remember one of the most exciting moments in this race so far, when they were going 3 wide through the first sector and the middle sector. I think they both got some unfair warnings. Obviously, Justin and Marlon, who went off track, I think they got an unfair warning or 2. So we'll have to see if those 3-second time penalties get removed. But as of right now, I'm not too sure if they will or won't, as I'm sure they might get another warning or 2 as the race goes on. One of the trickiest circuits for the track limits. When you have such a short lap time, you need to push the limits on the limit every single lap. And Jerry now is coming into the pit lane, so we can get onto the mediums and do just that. He's going to be going for a little more of an undercut relative to the top 4, and we'll see, is this going to work out? Is he going to come out in traffic, or will he get the free clean air that he needs to push? OP Tim, who boxed for the hards 3 laps ago now, is he going to come out ahead of Jerry as he sets the fastest lap of the Grand Prix? So this fresh hard rubber treating him quite nicely. So let's see as they come out of the pit lane. OP Tim coming just ahead of Jerry, but Jerry has the advantage of the medium compound tires, and I think as soon as Jerry gets him up to temperature, I think he's going to sail past OP Tim.
Certainly the new tyres are going to do wonders for the drivers, especially around this track, which demands so much from you, from your car, and especially from your tyres. Overheating is certainly a thing here, as we can see the Ferrari of TF Ruddy going off track. OP Kian could be pouncing earlier than he expected going into Sector 3 now, as they collide. TF Ruddy not leaving him any space, not looking to either, as he was not interested in that move from OP Kian, who now has to suffer the consequences with VA Marlon right behind him, but NLR Justin is also there. However, with the penalties, which will not help his situation any more than they are in right now, and we can see via Marlon, heading into the boxes instantly as OP Tim picks up a penalty for himself, but his teammate doing the team wonders once again as he goes for the move on the straight on TF Ruddy. TF Ruddy, he's going to look to fight back, nearly going down the inside there, thinking better of it just in time before the collision could have happened there possibly is OP Kian sails in front now, activating the DRS which he had from that main straight, which is going to help him massively. TF Ruddy is left with none, and the gap into sector 2 is now 3/10 and a bit, as Ace Grosjean also heading into the boxes. So now it's only the hard runners left, and VAR Marlon was one of the first to box onto the mediums. So their tyre life seems to be pretty decent, as OP Kian is still following on, TF Ruddy is following on from Kian, sorry. The whole race it was TF Ruddy leading, but now Kian got in front twice and looking to maintain his position, although he is flashing as well as TF Ruddy. So the drivers seem to be in similar situations, as GL up in P4 and P5, and certainly great positioning for the two Hasses, going to pick up a lot of points, that's for sure, with their consistency. OP's Kian heads into the boxes, and TF Ruddy stays out to live another day on these white tyres.
Yeah, and we're going to have to see now OP Keen coming into the pit lane. Where is he going to come out relative to this battle between Tim, Jerry and Marlon? Whereas obviously Jerry coming out on top ahead of Marlon, but on slightly older medium compound tyres, as now we see the second retirement in this race from Bean and Louis. OP Keen coming out of the pit lane now. Where is he going to come out? As you can see, Jerry is trying to make the move into turn 1. Keen coming out just ahead, or just behind Jerry, and he's now under pressure from Marlon, who's looking to that inside line. Red light is flashing. He's going to try and hold this one. And as we come through turn number 3, Kian going off of the circuit there, but Marlon getting up into P8 and just behind Jerry now. OP Tim struggling on the hard compound of tyre, and that now means that he is not going to be as competitive as the drivers ahead of him. But the further we get into this race, the more grip he's going to have relative to these medium runners. But right now, OP Keen on the cold mediums comes out behind both Jerry and Marlon, with Jerry getting himself up into P7. He's now leading this pack of drivers who have boxed for fresh tyres. And as you can see, Jerry on 2-lap old tyres, Marlon on 1-lap old tyre, and OP Kian on 0-lap old tyres. So it looks like the undercut strategy is going to give you that track position, but is it going to work out? Because you don't have the fresher tyres towards the end of the Grand Prix, and that grip difference could be the difference between a race winner and a race loser. So we'll have to see. Talent Factory Rudy is heading out of the pit lane, and this is quite interesting. He is going to come out quite a while behind his teammate. So the undercut strategy seeming to be the most powerful strategy that we have seen so far in this Grand Prix. And Marlon now makes the move for the net race lead. He is ahead of Jerry, and Jerry, who was in that midfield battle, finds himself in a net P2. So these pit stops have now completely changed the dynamic of this race, and looks like we're going to see another change, maybe between OP Tim and Talent Factory Rudy, who dives the inside, but Tim trying to send it into turn 4, or turn 5 I should say, in the Red Bull Freddie Rasmussen-esque, but it does not look like he'll be able to make that move. Rudy going off of the track there, but holding his P6 position, and Rudy, he's 1.1 seconds behind the cars ahead of him. He needs to push now. He doesn't have the ERS to do so, so he's got to use his raw pace and his fresh tires to catch up to the drivers ahead. But that battle between Tim and Rudy could see him outside of the DRS of the net top 3, which could be a big turning point in this Grand Prix. Meanwhile, One Namsco and Ace Grosjean are battling. One Namsco goes off the track as we head into the final sector, and Ace Grosjean isn't able to fight back just yet. Those guys trying to battle it out for the final points paying positions, but Nojek and Ruffy both come into the pit lane for their final stops, and you can see once again so much action. Justin makes a little movement there into the side of OP Tim, which hits him into the wall, and OP Tim is going to be lucky not to have wing damage after that collision. I think you're muted there, Mateo. Sorry about that. Not too sure what's happened to Mateo there. Hopefully he comes back in a moment there, and I think he's just unmuted his mic.
Hello, sorry about that. Yes, it is all spiced up at the front, and the drivers really taking the definition of using the entire track to a whole another level as they're battling it out and using everything, disregarding track limits, disregarding all of that can be handled after the race, and they are really giving it their all now as OP Kian is trailing from TF Jerry Van Bussel, and I think that they're not going to stop now, and OP Kian is going to look to make a move on TF Jerry Van Bussel regardless of the fact that he's currently in the race lead, as the two drivers ahead of him have penalties, of course, and he's going to look to go for the move now, 3/10 away, starting the straight, and it could be a position up, ending as he's into the slipstream, and he's going to go around the outside. That's not where you want to be if you're going to make the overtake. He's trying to switch back onto the inside, but TF Jerry Van Bussel has seen it all before, and he disregards all of that and stays up in P2. Very good defending from Jerry, weaving and now making sure OP Kian cannot get past, defending the inside like a champ. But OP Kian, very ambitious, tugging Jerry Van Bussel through that corner, quite literally. His motor was not powering him through that corner. It was one and only OP Kian, and they're still going at it, but now it's TF Ruddy who's joined the action, and I don't think Jerry Van Bussel will be too happy with that. No control over his car into that corner, and OP Kian has now sailed in front, lucky not to have front wing damage after all that work was put on it, and TF Ruddy has now pulled in front of Jerry Van Bussel. Perhaps a switch over that had to be made because of the penalty difference, of course, and now OP Kian has a job and a half to do. Either he needs to stay within 3 seconds, or he can just make the move on track if the 3 seconds get removed. There are two options, but I think the best would to be overtaking on track, as we never know about warning removals, which I think they're going to be a lot of tonight. As we can see, TF Ruddy very close to OP Kian. Don't think he'll be sparing him any nice thoughts, as a lot going on now in the heat of the moment. OP Kian still sticking it on the inside, and now on the outside using all of the track, not going to let go. OP Kian is giving it his absolute everything. Absolutely everything is going in from OP Kian, and he's still behind of TF Ruddy. Hopefully not going for another move through here, as the Red Bull driver is really pushing extremely hard on the Ferraris to maximize the points for his team. The passion is there, the motivation is there, and the pace has certainly been there the entire weekend, as TF Ruddy is now out of 3 seconds distance from Marlon after overtaking OP Kian, and now it is OP Kian and TF Ruddy who are contending for P1, even though VAR Marlon is currently having the lead of the race with 3 seconds of penalties included.
Yeah, Marlon, it's such a shame that he has those time penalties, because he's come in a debut race in CTC, and he could be the fourth man ever, well, not the fourth man, but the fourth team ever to win in CTC. So far, it's only been Talent Factory, OP, and NLR who've won races in this competition. So Marlon just needs to work on that consistency, and hopefully, if these guys keep battling behind him, he could possibly break out that 6 second gap, and I'm sure we're going to see a penalty or two between these drivers, as they are starting to get super aggressive. Someone mentioning in the chat there, I think they did choose violence today because they are sending themselves into each and every turn, and even each other every now and again. They want to get past, they want these positions, and especially OP Kian. He needs to gain as many positions as possible. He wants to get these championship points for OP and his teammate OP Tim, currently in P6 in a bit of a no man's land, and obviously he can't do much at this stage. But NLR Justin, he's in P5 now. He's got about 20% ERS, and as these guys continue to battle, he is the dark horse. He's sitting back, watching them race each other, and he's saving up that ERS, and he's slowly going to get more and more and more. And when the time comes, he will hopefully be able to make a move or two. He's got 11 laps of saving to go, so well, not 11 laps of racing. I'm sure he's going to spend a good 9 of them, because being this fourth man in the DRS train, unless you have a significant ERS advantage, you're not going to be making any moves anytime soon. So NLR Justin, definitely keep an eye on him towards the end of the Grand Prix. But This battling has gone on for quite a while now. Obviously, lap 25 of 36, and we are seeing so much action between the drivers. And I guess that is what makes a race feel long, when you just have so much action constantly. Drivers battling for these positions and these crucial positions in this race. But right now, Marlon is in P1, but he's not gaining to Talent Factory Rudy behind him. In fact, he's actually keeping quite a consistent gap. 3 seconds is the gap between P1 and P2, and with Talent Factory Rudy having 0 seconds of time penalties, it's not looking likely that Marlon is actually going to win this Grand Prix.
Indeed, it is, and TF Ruddy looking extremely strong, as you said, but OP Kian is on the same stage as him. They're both on no penalties, and they both could contend for this race win. And as you said, via Marlon, 6 seconds of penalties, not looking good for him. Nearly the entire grid with penalties, except for TF Ruddy, OP Kian, and El Geno, who I believe is not actually in his... Oh no, he is in his car, and... yeah, it's been kept incredibly consistent, and there's going to be a lot of position changes with all these penalties. For example, OP Tim is going to lose positions to a lot of drivers. He's going to go down until at least P8, as it is, and TF Jerry Van Bus with 8 seconds is going to go down to around the same position, as we see GL Ethan and GG Ruffy going at it. GG Ruffy gaining to P7. Very solid performance from him, considering that he did spin out earlier on this evening, and he's still going. As we can see, OP Kian up front, not really gaining on TF Ruddy right now, probably saving his ERS and saving his energy to overtake later on when it matters, as they're still going at it. GL Ethan now, I don't think has the pace to fight back on DG Ruffy, who's now 4 seconds behind OP Tim. But he needs to get within 3 seconds to be able to get that professional P6 and maybe even P5 on track. With Jerry Van Bussel's penalties, it's all a bit confusing and mathematical, but of course the game will work it out for us at the end. So now focus is on TF Ruddy and OP Kian, as OP Kian is seeming to be falling out of competitive distance to overtake from TF Ruddy, even though he only went 100 slower than his fastest lap time. So Team TF Ruddy is the fastest man on track, of course setting the fastest lap, and OP Kian is just about keeping up within that DRS. It's 3/10 the gap into the first corner, and it was 1.5 when he did go for the move. So certainly a lot of work to be done from OP Kian, but he does have the time to make it work. Further back, it's all a bit spread out still, as NLR Justin is at the back of this train from P5 all the way to P2, as via Marlon pulling away, but the 6 seconds has not done him any favours, and the track limits I don't think has done many of the drivers favours, as GG Ruffy now gets another 3 seconds of penalties. That's 6 seconds, so that's not great for him. He's going to go down positions instead of up, and not what NLR want, and it could possibly be OP's day to confirm P2 in the championship. All these penalties though is making it a bit confusing, but all we know for sure is that OP Kian is going to finish P3 or P2, maybe even P1 if he can make the move on TF Ruddy. He's certainly closed up a bit. He's saving the ERS, it may seem like, as he's got a bit more than TF Ruddy, although they're seeming to be a bit equal. He's not activating it though on this straight, so it's seeming he's going to save up for later, as we have 8 laps to go of this race, and it could be him going for a move now. He's very close. 1.5 tenths is the gap. That's what we saw when he made the move, and it is now getting all a bit competitive, shall we say, in the competitive team championship.
Definitely. OP Kian, you can see he wants this P1 position. He wants to lead this Grand Prix. Talent Factory Rudy, currently the only other driver on the entire circuit that does not have any time penalties. So OP Kian knows Talent Factory Rudy is the only man that stands between him and a victory today here in Mexico. And like you were saying, this victory would secure pretty much P2 in the championship for OP. So if Kian can do this, it's going to mean a lot to himself and his team. And he gets so close as we head into the stadium section. But Make sure to watch out. DG Ruffy is on the mediums. He's currently 2.7 behind Tim, and he's actually getting close. But you can see Jerry. I didn't see it because of the camera there, but Jerry went for a little bit of a dive into the hairpin there, kind of returning the favor to OP Kian. And OP Kian, have a snap of oversteer on the exit, has allowed Jerry to move himself up into a top 3 position. And Kian has got himself a 3-second time penalty. He's trying to fight back now into turn 1. The outside line, DRS wide open, but it does not look like he can regain that position. Tries to go for somewhat of a switchback move, but with 3 turns in a row, it does not look like it is likely that he will be making a move into turn 4. So that is a big turning point in this race. Is Jerry going to continue to keep up with his teammate, or is he going to try and hold back OP Keen? I don't think he will, as obviously points don't mean the world to Talent Factory. I think they'll both just be focusing on their own racing, getting a good result for themselves. Right now, Jerry, with his penalties, would drop down to P5, but Keane getting 3 seconds. That now means, but I do think that could possibly get removed due to the fact that Jerry obviously pushed him off the track there going into the hairpin. He was forced to cut the next turn, otherwise he probably would have collided into Jerry for a second time in a row. So, yeah, Jerry getting very aggressive there, and I'm sure we're going to see plenty of penalties for a couple of the drivers after the race at least. But right now, Talent Factory in P2 and on track P3. But once again, this is allowing Martin to just gain that little bit of time, and if someone contests Rudy for this race lead, even just one more battle could give Marlon the victory here. There is 6 more laps of racing to go, and Marlon is trying to gain every single tenth that he can. 3.4 seconds is the gap between P1 and P2, and if Rudy gets himself involved in any more battles, Marlon could be taking home the victory in his debut, and the 4th team ever to score it. And what an achievement that would be in the penultimate round of this season. So let's see what happens for the next 6 laps. But Rudy, Jerry, Kian, they're all getting aggressive now, as they have been for the last 20 laps or so. Been ultra aggressive, trying to make these moves, and thankfully has not ended in tears just yet. But there's been a lot of track limits ignored throughout this race to avoid collisions between each other. Meanwhile, Justin in the background saving up his ERS. He's now up to almost 50% ERS. That might not seem like much, but at this Mexican circuit, I have driving experience here, and you're only gaining about 5% ERS per lap, possibly even less depending on your setup. So having an amount like 40% is it's amazing to see, because you can see Kian almost below 10%, Jerry almost below 10%, Rudy almost below 10%. All of these drivers have absolutely no ERS to play with. If they turn on that overtake button, they are making a net loss. So Justin is in a great position in this Grand Prix, and I think he could be taking home a podium today.
Yep, of course, a lot of penalties could be removed. We're seeing in the chat some drivers unhappy, of course, Kian getting the 3 seconds because of the ambitious, to say the least, dive bomb from Jerry Van Bussel, so it's a bit of a shame there. But of course, after Stewards, it could spice up a bit, and we could see some changes, just how Talent Factory won themselves a championship 2 races before the end. But Ruddy, we're not talking about him enough. He's going to get P1 in this race, yes or yes, because he is within 6 seconds of Marlon, and he's the only driver to not have any penalties within the grid, whereas his teammate, ironically, has 8 seconds, and he's being followed by OP Kian, who's looking to get his revenge and possibly make a move on Ruddy, because he could be confident that his penalties will be removed due to the what could be considered unfair reason why he did get the 3 seconds in total. But now he's following on from TF Jerry Van Bussel behind. No drivers close to each other, and this seems to be the closest battle. But OP Kian is not close enough whatsoever. We can see from his onboard that it's not very near to the Ferrari, who's currently just behind his teammate, and perhaps his teammate could drop back a bit to help him and back off OP Kian a tad bit more. But further back, Ace Grosjean and Via Ali Olaf exchanging positions on the main straight. the Alfa Romeo getting overtaken, but of course does not matter because Ace Grosjean has now picked up 12 seconds worth of penalties, and the track seeming to be as challenging for drivers as it was during qualifying. So overall, I think it's proved very difficult for basically the entire grid if we look at the penalties and uh, the amount of oversteer moments that many have had, but those who have coped best have done so very well. And sorry, it's just I was going on board with Marlon, and it seems he may have had a moment there because of just how slow the nature of the final sector really is. And TF Ruddy is still well within the margin he needs to maintain that P1 position, which he needs ever so greatly. Further back, though, DG Ruffy and OP Tim battling for on-track positions, both with 6 seconds, and DG Ruffy seeming to be able to make the move on this straight. OP Kian further ahead, also very close, but not as close as Ruffy. Ruffy on the inside has made the move before the braking zone of turn 1. The Red Bull not looking to give up, though. He's looking to make the move further on in the lap, and DG Ruffy is now ahead into lap 33 with 3 laps remaining. It's seeming very likely that he could grab P6 for his team. He's already right behind his teammate, who is in P5. No spins all the race for his teammate, but DG Ruffy did have that moment in lap 1, and it's extremely impressive for him to get back up to P6, especially with comparing to other drivers, not that many penalties, although if he did have less, then it certainly would have helped him a lot more. And this could possibly be what keeps NLR in contention for P2 in this championship, because they are currently in a sandwich of OP, and that's very helpful for them as they're going to keep going and keep pushing. Further back, we can see VAR Oli Olaf still looking to make a move on Ace Grosjean, although since they have so much difference of penalties, perhaps he does not want to risk it. OP Tim within the DRS of his rival DG Ruffy, as we see OP Kian once again trailing on Jerry Van Bussel. Of course, he has 8 seconds, so he's going to have the position anyways, but perhaps he just wants to make the move to make it stick, to just get that feeling of adrenaline through his veins. And he's going to stay back for now, keeping it calm, something we haven't seen much in this race with so many chaotic moves and certainly very entertaining battles, but it's going to be one for the history books here in Season 1. Definitely an extremely entertaining race for all our viewers. Thank you all for tuning in. By the way, almost 50 as of now, and we can see TF Ruddy is going to be crossing the line very shortly, and he could possibly be winning if he doesn't make any race losing mistake, a big crucial mistake, and it would not do anything for TF, would just increase the margin on OP, perhaps just look better for the final standings. But they have certainly put in what looks like an effort they would have put if they're competing like OP and NLR are so hard for the championship, still putting in their 100%, and I think that's what's key to their success as TF Ruddy rounds the final corner for the 35th time this race, and he's heading onto the 35th lap now. As we can see, Cherry Van Bussel still holding off OP Kian, who's not going to go for the move, it seems, as he's got NLR Justin hot on his heels, and they've both got 3 seconds, so it could be one battle to look out for. Maybe Justin making the ambitious move on this final lap of racing. On the last main straight opportunity. Of course, the second last lap, as we see OTA, no second. GL Ethan going at it. GL Ethan had the outside line into turn 2, and now taking the inside for himself on turn 3. And once again, the regular occasion as the McLaren goes off the track to maintain in the battle. He's going on the inside now. Very ambitious move. He's going to brake a lot later. He's trying to keep it on the inside, but the Haas has taken what he thinks is his, staying in P8, and probably wondering why OT8 Noseegg is going for a move with 9 seconds worth of penalties, but nevertheless, GL Ethan is keeping it clean, keeping on track, and keeping his P8 nice and shiny as he's going to try maintain it for the end of the race, as we see OP Kian and NLR Justin getting extremely close once again. It's the final opportunity to overtake, the final big opportunity that is, and NLR Justin is so close. He's going to have to take it if he wants to keep going with NLR in this championship battle for P2. And we see flashing is OP Kian. He's only got 3%. That's not going to help him whatsoever. NLR Justin hot on his tail now into turn one. He doesn't seem to have the straight line speed, and that's going to really hurt him. But he's going to go for the move nevertheless, touching with OP Kian, touching him a bit, just enough to make him get unbalanced, and that impacts his car a lot. OT and Nose going for the move on Giolithan further back, but this is the battle to watch as NLR Justin has removed a bit of time from their battle by touching the Red Bull's rear, and now they're going to keep going, but it seems that the Red Bull has it under control, as there's no more big overtaking zones. Into sector 3 would be the last one I could imagine, unless he goes for a very chaotic and ambitious move, but he's getting extremely close, so there's nothing to say that he can't make the move into sector 3 as he's rounded off the sector 2S's very nicely. He's very close. He could go for a dive bomb, but he is far too back to make it work, and now on board with VAR Marlon, who will be winning on track, but off track I think the deserved awards, and TF Ruddy still keeping the streak going for TF regardless of their win in the championship already. It is TF taking P1 in Mexico. VA Marlon comes home in P2, OPK in P3, and Justin P4. Very good race from him. Jerry Van Possel, after serving 5 seconds at the end, still comes home in P5. OP Tim P6, just behind is DG Ruffy in P7. Then you have one Elliot, Giolithan, and then Nozake rounds off the top 10. But there is nothing to say. These are the final results, because there is going to be, I think, a pretty full stewards room after this interesting and entertaining race, as VA Marlon takes the driver of the day. And I'm not sure mathematically if NLR are still in it, but OP have stayed equal, I think, to say the least, minimal with NLR, so they will maintain the lead on them into the final race. So it will take a bit of an NLR masterclass, which we saw in Japan, to clutch that P2.
Yeah, definitely. And obviously NLR, I just did the maths there. If everything stays as it does, although I'm unsure that it will, I think there's a lot of steward decisions to be made after the Grand Prix itself. But as of right now, with the results that we have, it is 12 points heading into the final round. So if that stays as it does, OP, all they need to do is stay consistent in that final round. Outscore a team by 12 points is quite difficult. You need a 1-2 and a little bit of luck on your side. So OP in a very strong position after the provisional race results, at least, to win this championship. But if I'm actually very interested here to see how many warnings VAR Marlon has actually gotten, and it looks like he has gotten one warning after his penalty, so I don't think he will get one of those 3 second time penalties removed. So I think Tam Factory Rudy is the race winner today, and I think it will definitely stay like that, because Marlon getting 2 warnings removed seems a bit unlikely. But a great race today with so much action throughout the Grand Prix, and Talent Factory on top once again. They win the championship, and what do they do the very next week? Well, they win another Grand Prix. That is how Talent Factory Rudy operates, and he's going to be very happy with another strong performance from his team. VIR Marlon, let's not let it go unnoticed. In his debut Grand Prix, scores a P2 for Virtual Insanity Racing, their first podium of the season, and a result to be extremely proud of in this penultimate round. And then, obviously, third place onto the podium is OP Kian, scoring more points for Outplayed Racing. Whether those results will stay the same, we cannot be completely sure. But I hope you all enjoyed this Grand Prix, and make sure to tune in next week for the final round of the season. I have been your commentator, More Games, alongside Matteo, and I hope to see you all next week.
Thank you all for tuning in, and we will certainly see you next week for the season finale.